Welcome to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CRE PN Radio. Thanks for joining us. My name is Jade Aaron Gross. This is the podcast focused on commercial real estate investment and risk management strategies. Weekly, we have conversations with commercial real estate investors and professionals who provide their experience and insight to help you grow your real estate portfolio. Today, my guest is Rod Khleif. Rod is a multiple business owner and philanthropist who's passionate about business, high performance, real estate, and giving back. And in just a minute, we're going to speak with Rod about the investor mindset. But first, a quick reminder, if you like our show, CRE PN Radio, there are a couple things you can do to help us out. You can like, share, and subscribe. And as always, we encourage you to leave a comment. We love to hear from our listeners. Also, if you want to see how handsome our guests are, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube at Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. And while you're there, please subscribe. With that, I want to welcome my guest, Rod. Welcome back to CRE PN Radio.
Good to see you, Darren. Let's have some fun today. It's crazy times we're in right now, so I think we've got a lot to talk about.
Well, I am so looking forward to this. Before we get started, if you could take just a minute and share with the listeners a little bit about your background.
Sure. And for those of you that have heard this before, forgive me, but I'll be very brief. So I'm an immigrant. I was born in the Netherlands, wooden shoes, windmills, immigrated when I was 6, ended up in Denver, Colorado. We really struggled. I remember eating expired food and drinking powdered milk with our cereal in the morning, which sounds better than it is. And I wore clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school till I lied about my age at Burger King and got a job when I was 14. And I'm sure there are people on listening now that had it harder than we did, but I knew I wanted more. And luckily, my mom had an incredible work ethic. She babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And she was an entrepreneur with her babysitting money, believe it or not. And she invested in the stock market successfully. And she also invested in real estate. Her first real estate acquisition was a house right across the street from us. When I was about 14, she paid around $30,000. When I was 17, she told me she made $20,000 in her sleep. And I'm like, what? You made $20,000? You didn't do anything? Screw college. I'm getting into real estate. So I became a real estate broker right when I turned 18. You could do that with education. They got smart. Now you need some experience, but I could have my own office right when I turned 18. And, my first year I made about 8 to 10,000. My second year, maybe 10 to 12,000. Keep in mind, this is 44 years ago, but my third year I made over $100,000. So what happened between year 2 and year 3 that caused me to 10X my income? Well, what happened was I was dating a girl and worked with her dad, who was a broker, who taught me about mindset and psychology, how really 80 to 90% of your success in anything is just that, your mindset and psychology. Only 10 to 20% is the real estate stuff, Darren and I talk about on our podcast. It's really taking action with what you learn, not getting locked up in fear or caught up in limiting beliefs. And, fast forward to today, I've owned a couple thousand houses that I've rented long-term in 3 states. I own thousands of apartment units. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might say, wow, because I said, wow. And I got a little bit of an ego and thought I was a freaking real estate god and, barely fit my head through the door sometimes. And, when that happens, God or the universe will give you a nice little smack. Well, that was 2008 and 9. I lost $50 million in 2008 and 9. And so, what I'm known for the most on my podcast, which is called Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing, is talking about the mindset it took to have 50 million in the first place. And then more importantly, the mindset it took to get it back. And I think in the times we're in right now with, rampant inflation, the Fed has promised 5 more interest rate bumps. And as of this recording, they've already gone up 50 basis points a couple of weeks ago, which derailed several of our deals. And so, I think we are heading into a time where there will be fear. And so, I'd love to maybe talk about some strategy with you, Darren, around mitigating that and dealing with it.
No, I think that's exactly where the conversation needs to go. You mentioned that you've been through, just the cycle, the 07 to 09 period or 06 to 09 period when nobody could see anything possibly go wrong, to where nothing was right, to where opportunities were everywhere, and then the cycle rode back up. Um, when I've talked with people about this in the past, the notion has been that cycles typically run, somewhere between 7 to 10 years, from low to high, and that's just kind of the the wavelength of a cycle kind of thing. Ever since I've been doing this podcast, there's always been this kind of sense, well, we're kind of late in the cycle, like we're in the second double, a double header.
Kind of 3 years ago they were saying that. 4 years ago they were saying that. No, right.
No, I mean ever since I've did the first interview, and so clearly there are things that have, we've gone past whatever the normal cycle is, and when we look back, 10 years from now and look back in history, it'll be just kind of like a curve that goes up and down kind of thing. But at the end, they tend to, there's always an upward line there, but it's those cycles where we're, where we are right now and where we're probably headed based on just all of the things that are in line to happen. And I thought, given your experience, your work that you do with mindset, your coaching and the boot camps, and just all of your investment experience, who better than to speak about just the, how to stay strong, how to keep your mindset sharp, how to be ready for what's coming,
ready to capitalize on what's coming.
Abandon your course, and your belief, and recognize, the opportunities that are going to come. And so I don't know where the right place to start this conversation, but I mean,
I can run with it. I can just run with it because I will tell you, it really ties right into what I had to do when I lost everything. Okay. Because when, of course, I had massive fear at that time. I mean, I thought I was set for life. I had $50 million net worth conservatively, and it just imploded. And so, I will tell you some of the things that I did to recover from that, because you can cross correlate those strategies to what you're going to need to do moving into this recession. And I think, there are some people are saying it's going to be a big one. In fact, who was it that just used the word hurricane? One of the big CEOs, one of the big banks, I believe it was. But many people have said there's a recession coming. The head of Fannie Mae, the head of JP Morgan Chase. I think actually he's the one that said it could be a hurricane. So but the bottom line is, when that happens, of course, the media will be building it up and making it much worse than it is. They'll say real estate's going to crash for 10 years. And, don't get me started on that fake news crap right now. But the point is, you've got to mitigate that in your own mind and recognize they're not there to inform us. They're there just to scare us and startle us and get subscribers. So, and forgetting the political agendas. But the point is, it's important to, first of all, to stand guard at the door to your mind during that time. Okay. Keep, yes, scan the headlines, see what's going on, but don't get sucked into it, because focus is absolutely critical during that time. In fact, if you're listening to Darren's podcast, you're a leader. There's no question you're a leader. And right now, more than ever, the world needs more leaders. And to be a leader, you've got to manage your focus. And that's what I had to do back when I lost it all, because it would have been very easy for me to focus on the loss. And I did for a short while. I mean, it was a big hit for me. I thought I was set for life, like I said, but I recognize the fact that whatever you focus on gets larger, both positive or negative. And so, if you're focused on that negative crap on the news, that's what's going to get larger, and you're going to basically just, scare yourself into a corner. And we all succumb to this sometimes, but it's really critical to pay attention to your focus. I'll give you a great example of this dynamic. They asked Mother Teresa when she was alive if she was anti-war, and she said, "No, I'm pro-peace." And it's just a, play on the same thing, but you see the point there. And so, and I have students, or not even students, actually, just people that aren't students. My students know better, but people call me and say, I've got all this student loan debt. How do I get out of this debt? And I say, wrong question. How do you make so much money that the debt's irrelevant? Right. So again, focus is super, super important through this period. And I will tell you, the most successful people on the planet are the ones that have the most enhanced focus. Okay. I mean, look at people like Elon Musk and Bezos. And so my podcast just broke 13 million downloads. I'm very, very proud of this, but I listen to really two podcasts, Joe Rogan on one side and Tim Ferriss on the other. And there's a political component to that as well. But on Tim Ferriss's show, I think he gets 13 million a week. So just to give you some framework for this podcast, but he actually interviews the best of the best in the world in every walk of life, from actors like, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ed Norton, Jamie Foxx, Hugh Jackman, to Olympic athletes like Phelps, and to billionaires like Ray Dalio. And I started to hear a pattern in those interviews. Most of them meditate. And what does meditation enhance? Focus, right? So again, your focus is critical. And I don't know about you, Darren, but sometimes I'll be watching a movie and I'll have my phone up and I'll be scrolling social media. And what does that kill? Your focus, right? Because your brain is making these micro decisions that just kill your focus. So the focus is a super important piece. And you also have to make a decision. When if the soup really hits the fan, you've got to make a decision that you're going to focus on the positive and focus on what you want, and bring that in, because the Latin root for the word decision means to cut off. If you're going to attack the island in battle, you burn your ships because you're taking their ships home. That's a decision. It's not a 1 foot in, 1 foot out sort of thing. It's not a dip a toe in the water. It is freaking done. And so that is, you've got to make sure you make that decision, but you also need to have positive expectation. Okay. Because it's so easy to focus on pain and struggle. We actually connect through pain and struggle. I'll give you an example of this. Darren, if you came up to me and said, Rod, how you doing? And I said, oh my God, I am freaking fantastic. Life is amazing. Darren, you're evolved, you might not, but most people would take a few steps back and say, okay, Rod's off his freaking meds. But if you came up to me and said, Rod, how you doing? I say, oh man, my back is freaking killing me. I just lost 10 grand in the market or 100 grand in the market. You put your arm around me and say, oh, I feel you, brother. We actually connect through pain. Leaders cannot do that. Leaders have got to focus on positivity, and really you've got to make some declarations to yourself. You have to decide what it is that you want and really focus on that. And God or the universe, whatever you believe, will conspire to help you make that happen. And don't forget this either. I've had super negative things happen to me, like that $50 million loss. You choose the meaning you place on something. Okay. And it can be a positive meaning. The meaning I place on my $50 million loss is I would have never met my supermodel, beautiful wife. Been together 15 years, and she's supermodel beautiful. I'm not exaggerating, and more beautiful on the inside than the outside. So again, that would have never happened. I'd give it all up again for her. So if you've had a negative thing happen to you, don't let that be your identity. Don't wallow in that. You remember, you change the meaning of what happens to you. Now, the other thing is, many of us have fears and limiting beliefs. And in fact, I'm sure you've got people listening that have never taken action in this commercial real estate. They listen to these podcasts, but they've never made a move because of fear or because of limiting beliefs. And they're caught in analysis paralysis many times. And so, but let's talk about fear first. The thing that you need to remember about fear is we all have it, but when you take action and push through it, it mitigates and it actually diminishes the fear. And I will say something else too. When you're grateful, you can't be fearful at the same time. When you're grateful, you can't be angry at the same time. So use gratitude as well. Just take a minute and look around at, your home and your family, and go outside and look at nature and just be grateful. You can't be fearful at the same time. So that'll be really important through this next session. Now the other thing I'll mention is limiting beliefs. When I immigrated this country, I didn't speak English, and I got thrown into school, and I found out what bullies were for the first time. And, I got my butt kicked regularly. Hadn't learned how to fight back yet. Love to run into a couple of those guys now. But the point is, then my mom, in proud Dutch woman that she is, thought it'd be a good idea to send me to school in wooden shoes and those leather shorts the Germans wear for Oktoberfest, the lederhosen. So I got my butt kicked again. And then the bullies would chase me home, and she thought she was helping me when she chased them off with a fly swatter. Next day, butt kicking. And I came up with this limiting belief that I wasn't good enough. And the reason I bring this up is a lot of people have limiting beliefs like that. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not old enough, young enough, don't have enough time to do this side business, don't have the money to do it. And honestly, there's a reason that the acronym for belief systems is BS, because 99% of them are just that BS. Now, by the way, this is something we go into at great length at my boot camp. Can I mention my boot camp real quick, Darren, just because it'll tie into what I'm going to say next. Yeah. So I've got a live multifamily 3-day boot camp coming up in Denver. It's the only one I do each year. It's going to be in Denver, July 29th, 30th, and 31st, 3 days of training. It's not a big sales pitch. I talk about my coaching for about 30 minutes, but the other 3 days is all full on training. Every aspect of this business, from building a team to picking a market to, evaluating that market, assessing it, to finding deals, to evaluating those deals, underwriting those, to financing them, to raising all the money you need for your deals, to syndication, joint ventures, even property management. But the reason I wanted to bring it up is I also get into this mindset. There's a reason that my students are so successful. I'm gonna brag for a minute here. I've been teaching a little over 4 years. My students own somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 70,000 doors that we know of. It's probably more than that. And it's because they take action with what they learn. And so I spend time in my boot camp helping you take action with what you learn and dealing with fears and limiting beliefs. And it's very powerful. And so since you're a friend of Darren's, if you text my name, Rod, to 72345 and use the code RODFRIEND, you can come for $197 for 3 days of training. It's truly a no-brainer. Okay. So again, text ROD to 72345 or go to rodindenver.com. But if you but remember the code RODFRIEND is one word. Now, if the price will even hit around $700 at some point. And so if you're hearing this and it's much higher, if you have any trouble, just DM me on any social channel. I'm on every one of them. They've even got me on TikTok now, and we will respond and get you taken care of. But the other thing is it actually comes with a couple of bonuses as well. I'm throwing in my document library, which I've paid tens of thousands of dollars for the documents in there, and my deal evaluator software. So that all of that for $197. That hell, those two things alone are worth 10 times that. So, but anyway, the reason I brought that up is because there are so many people, like I mentioned earlier, that are analytical, which are some of the best people in this business, because you have to underwrite deals, you have to review deals, but they have to check off every single box before they make a move, and then they end up never making a move. And so that's why this mindset piece is so important, and why I give it time at the boot camp, because it's so relevant. But because you've got to take that first step. You've got to take that first step in this business. And when I tell you, there is probably a once in a lifetime opportunity coming over these next couple of years. I don't say that lightly. I missed the one in 08 and 09. I will not miss this one. Okay. I missed that one because I was hiding under a rock feeling sorry for myself, but I'm going to tell you, there will be exponential opportunities in this multifamily business. And so, in fact, we've already seen big price, they call it price discovery, big price reductions. We had a couple of deals in the $44 million range. One of them, they dropped to 38 and we still backed down. We could have had it. And we were looking at it at 44 before the interest rate bump. But so these prices are starting to come down, and once they do a couple more rate bumps, you're going to really see some soup. And we could end up in stagflation, which would really be ugly, where we've got inflation and pricing, and this recession. So so again, back to the first step. The reason I brought that up is you've got to take it. Dr. Martin Luther King said, you take that first step in faith, the next step will be revealed. Lao Tzu, thousands of years ago, said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And in real estate, I see it with my students. It's the law of the first deal. It's the scariest. It's the most stressful. It takes the longest. And then it might take 8 months to get it, or even a year sometimes with my students. Next thing I know, after they get it, they have 5. I'm like, what the heck just happened? So, but you got to take action. And again, action mitigates fear. So I've been rambling. If you want to ask me a question, I've got more, but
no, I appreciate everything you've kind of laid out here, and I think the thing that I think that anybody that's been kind of either on the sideline, or they've been working hard trying to find deals, and all of a sudden now there's all this information, and you said it, it's important to guard your mind, because I think it's so easy, and I think that it's important to recognize that all of the whether it be the social websites or the news. I mean, it's a known fact that like even Facebook, they know that if they can get you angry, they can get you to stay engaged, kind of thing. And I think a lot of the news plays that as well. So
there's a movie about that called The Social Dilemma. You've got these incredible supercomputers that are smarter. They're really smarter than we are, and they'll suck you in and they'll stay in. And I forgot to mention something. I'm sorry to interrupt, buddy. I just, when you said that, I realized I forgot to mention something. You've not only do you have to stay on guard at your mind, but you have to bring in the good stuff right now. Okay. Like go on YouTube and listen to inspirational videos. I do these clips on my podcast called Own Your Power, which is just about that, owning your power. I just did one on playing to your strengths. In fact, that's one of the things I want to talk about. But and they're 5 minutes. If you give me 5 minutes a week, I will juice you. They've got music. I'm really proud of them. There are hundreds of them there, but that's the other piece of that. Not just guarding your mind, but really bringing in good stuff. Sorry to interrupt, buddy. Please continue.
No, but I think just to be, you have to have the awareness,
Yeah.
that the game is not set up just to give you the good stuff. The game is set up to kind of keep you engaged, and they figured out the way to do that is to make it negative and keep you in fear.
Oh yeah.
And they're going to suck you in, and you're going to have to pull yourself away, because otherwise, if you don't consciously do that, they win and they get your attention. And
I've even found myself sucked in on some TikTok stuff, because I'll look at some of the political stuff and then I get sucked in and get angry and I've had to take a hiatus, from it.
Well, and I think even like the political parties, I think that, a lot of the reason why we have the issues we have right now is the parties recognize if they can make the other guy the bad guy, and keep the focus that the other guy is the bad guy, rather than try and find some common middle ground, they can have power.
Yep.
And so I think it's important just to understand they don't want a solution. They want the problem, because the problem keeps everybody energized. And so when you recognize, it's in the politics, it's in the news, it's in the social media, it's up to you to take control of your mind and invest in yourself and find that positive information or whatever it is. And I just want to ask you, I mean, you mentioned like, your boot camp and talked about meditation and stuff. How what kind of frequency do you recognize? I mean, do you have like a routine? Do you recommend?
Yeah. Good question. Really good question.
Or is it just like, quarterly go to
I meditated right before this interview, and I sit in my recliner behind this green screen here, and I have this little app that I use. There's lots of meditation apps. I use one called Pzizz, P-Z-I-Z-Z, and you can set a time from 2 minutes to 3 hours or 10 hours, doesn't matter, and it can put you to sleep very effectively, or meditate. It's the focus piece of the app, and it's been proven that a small piece of meditation is like exponentially more relaxing and what's the word I'm trying to, more rejuvenating than even sleeping, believe it or not. And so, but right now more than ever, again, you need to clear your head. And I'm looking in the mirror while I'm saying this. Right now more than ever, I need to clear my head, because my business is very often we need to innovate, we need to pivot, we need to redirect ourselves when things happen like what's coming. And so, I want to be ready for it. And, I've had to innovate in the past. I remember when, in early 2020, I had 800 people scheduled to come to Orlando, and many of them had paid. I'm like, holy crap, what are we going to do? And if you go to multifamilyvirtualbootcamp.com, you'll see Rod on his cell phone shooting the video to go virtual. I went virtual almost immediately. I built a studio here at my compound, but this Denver one is live. I mean, that's in person 3 days. But I have done some virtual ones in the past too. And so, sometimes you have to innovate or pivot but what you said about social media is so critical. I mean, it's really resonating with me because I've noticed it myself. Like I just came back from a vacation in St. Bart's, and I was scrolling through a lot of that crap at the pool, and it's just because I was bored, nothing to do, and then finally I'm like, I got to turn this thing off and read books, because it's just so negative. But one other thing I want to mention, Darren, is as you go through this, I mean, this relates to the multifamily business as well. I just alluded to it, that I just did an own your power clip on this. You must play to your strengths, especially through what's coming. Okay. Because, some of the greatest partnerships I've seen, I've interviewed some of the best operators in the world, really, in multifamily. And it's very often it's a partnership between several people that are all paying to, or a couple of people in many cases that are all playing to their strengths. The most common dynamic I see is I'll see an analytical person that's introverted with a more outgoing extroverted person. Those are, incredible partnerships. I'm sure you've seen it as well. And so it's really important that instead of trying to maximize your weaknesses, you play to your strengths and you hire, align, or partner for your weaknesses, because when you're doing what you're strong in, you love it. Okay. And when you love it, you're going to be passionate in it. And it's going to require passion for you to influence people, to sell to you, to invest with you, and so on and so forth. And, if you're not sure what your strengths and weaknesses are, you can do a Myers-Briggs profile, or what's called a DISC profile, DISC, or just ask your friends, what are you strong and weak at? And again, playing to that is super important, because you need that passion. You need that passion to be able to influence people, especially when they're operating in fear. And if you're trying to raise money for a deal, if you're passionate about it, you'll be able to influence. And that passion is actually the fuel. So it's really important that you discover what juices you and inspires you, and you work in that, because that passion also breeds creativity and minimizes and eliminates fear. So that's a critical piece. And one that I've just realized I forgot to mention, super important, is be careful who you're hanging out with through this. Okay. Peers are critical. When I was losing everything in 08 and 09, luckily I was in a mastermind. It was actually Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership. And I was around people that were thriving through the crash. And they're like, get up, you big freaking baby, 50 million schmillion, just get up and get back to work. And that's what I needed, So, a lot of people, will just, what's the word I'm looking for? They'll just end up being friends with people they went to school with or work with. And sometimes those people, out of their fear or jealousy or fear of losing you or fear of feeling like they'll be perceived to be less than, will hold you back. And sometimes it's family. And I will tell you, love your family, but choose your peers. Be very proactive. Don't be lazy about that. Proactively. Like I started a mastermind. In fact, we're meeting next week in Houston, and I think it's the largest multifamily mastermind there is, about 14 billion in assets, and represented by the members. And we meet 3 times a year. But I started that thing to because I want to be around people that think what I think is hard is easy. And that's what you need to be seeking out. If you're listening to this, you need to be seeking out groups that, that are better than you, that have people in them that are better than you at what you want to do, like multifamily. Because, if you're going to play tennis, you want to play somebody better or someone worse than you, right? You're only going to get better if you play someone better. It's the same thing in this business. And you want to be around people, again, that aren't afraid of your success. That's one of the amazing things in my Warrior coaching program is, most of these deals, those 60, 70,000 doors were done between warriors, and, people will post a win and everybody's congratulating them. And you want to be in that kind of an environment where people are praising you and holding you accountable. So, I wanted to mention that as well, Darren.
I think it's all, again, grabbing hold of your mind and protecting it from all the negative information that just is, you're being attacked by the negative information. So right. You have to kind of, like I said, guard the door, get some positive information, surround yourself with people that are going places that, have mindset of achievement as opposed to whoa is me. And, I think then beyond that, how would you see, if you've got your mind right,
let me add something. Sorry. Please hold your question for 1 second. I just remembered I forgot something else. We talked about that the soup is coming. It's coming for sure. And you also asked me what I do routines that I have. And I realized I really didn't answer that question. So that recliner I was talking about, typically most mornings I will sit in it and I will manifest. You could call it prayer, whatever you want. But I mean, I've manifested some big things in my life, mansions, $8 million home, all the stupid cars I thought were important, the Rolls and the Lambo and the Bentley and all that stuff that I thought was important at one time, but I manifested it. And how I did it was, and how I do it now is I'll sit in that chair and I'll just do gratitude. I'll just be grateful for my beautiful wife, my kids, my foundation. And then I'll do gratitude for the things that I want as if I already have them. And I know I'm going to lose some of you analytical ones on that one, but I'm just telling you, it freaking works. And so that's what I would call a success habit. Okay. And we've all got habits, and through this period, you got to be really conscious of what your habits are, because some of your habits will traject your life up and others will traject your life down. And I suppose the easiest way to look at that is with, what you eat and whether or not you exercise. But it's really critical that if you've got some bad habits, that you're consciously aware of them, you mitigate them and focus on, success habits, like having clarity around your goals. You come to my boot camp, the first hour and a half is spent goal setting on steroids, because how are you going to get anything if you don't know what it is? You need to know what you want with clarity to create what Napoleon Hill in his book Think and Grow Rich calls a burning desire. You got to really want it. Okay. And so you've got to have clarity with your goals, and you should reassociate with those goals. That's one of the things when I lost everything. I reassociated with what I wanted and why I wanted it, so that I was focused on that, not what I didn't want, and focusing on results instead of busy work, making sure that you're actually doing, looking at your to-do list and using the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, to work on the 20% that's going to get you 80% further, and another success habit is massive freaking action. Massive action mitigates everything, and of course, really paying attention to your health through this as well. Not just your well, of course, your physical health, what you eat, your exercise, but even your mental health, making sure you're getting outside, spending time with family, meditating, praying, whatever is super, super important. So habits through this, managing those are really important.
No, and that's, I think, where I was just kind of trying to go is just, not only the routine thing, but just, I think the global thing is that life is always going to happen. I mean, there's always going to be, whether it be, the political situation or the economic situation or whatever that is, that's going to create opportunities, stress, wins, losses, that are things that I can't control. But if I can control the mindset, and I can, look forward and have it, and like you said, the focus, knowing exactly what I want and what I need to do next. And, the massive action thing, I think, is the one that is obviously
it mitigates fear. It mitigates fear.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm stressful, if I take massive action, it mitigates that, achievers call it stress, but it's really fear. Okay. And so it mitigates that stress / fear. And it's really important. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's all good. Hey, Rod, if we could, or let me ask you just one more question. In the whole plethora of kind of what we've talked about, is there one most important tool for maintaining the mindset?
I think it's goals. I really do. I think it's making sure you're focused on what you want, not what you don't want. And that's why, again, my students know this, and, reassociating with what you want on a regular basis, maybe even a daily basis. By the way, if you can't make my boot camp, I did a goal setting workshop. I do it every year and I did on January 1st this year on the New Year's Day. And if you go to rodslinks.com, rods, plural, links, plural.com, that's all got all my stuff on it. But at the bottom is this goal setting workshop. It's got music. There's a guide you can download. So if you can't make my boot camp, for God's sakes, go download that and do that goal setting exercise with your spouse. If you've got kids that are over 10 years old, have them do it. Super powerful. And I'm not going to try to sell you anything. It's just a gift. So I highly recommend you do that, because it's so important. People spend more time planning a freaking birthday party than they do designing their lives. That's designing your life. So I think that's probably the most important thing.
Got it. Right. If we could, I'd like to shift gears here for a second.
Mhm.
By day, I'm an insurance broker, and I work with my clients to assess risk and determine what to do with the risk. And there's three strategies we typically look to. We first look to see if there's a way we can avoid the risk. When that's not an option, we look to see if we can minimize the risk. And when we cannot avoid nor minimize the risk, then we look to see if we can transfer the risk. And that's what an insurance policy is. It's a risk transfer vehicle. And as such, I like to ask my guests if they can look at their own situation. And you can frame this however you like. Could
Mhm.
be, the market, politics, the interest rates,
Mhm.
however
Mhm.
you choose to frame it. But if you can identify what you consider to be the biggest risk,
Yeah.
and again, for clarification, while I am an insurance broker, I'm not necessarily looking for an insurance related answer.
Got it. Got it.
And
Got
so,
it. No, that's not the answer I'll give you. Yeah.
yeah. So if you're willing, I'd
Yeah.
like to ask you, Rod Khleif, what is the biggest risk?
I will tell you, today is June 8th, and I have to say that because who knows what will happen. Things are changing daily right now. And I know this will air in a week or two, but right now, the biggest risk that I have alerted my students to on several occasions is the debt markets. Okay. It is crazy out there right now. And I'm going to tell you that when you're performing a multifamily right now, you need to do some worst case scenarios. Like if you're planning on getting in right now, the most common debt is bridge debt. And that is can be very onerous debt. And because you have a business plan, you got to adhere to that business plan. Otherwise, what's could be non-recourse can become full recourse. So it's very, very important that you do what you say you're going to do. And some of those have short fuses, like 3-year timelines. And we could be in the midst of this recession in 3 years. So I would encourage you to do absolute worst case scenarios as it relates to interest rate. Take out interest rate when you refinance. We just put a 138 unit under contract. By the way, if you were accredited, it's a phenomenal deal, 54,000 a unit, which is unheard of in an emerging market in Arkansas. So if you're interested, text partner to 72345 and get on our portal. Because we'll be presenting that probably about the time this goes live, and it'll be a very short. It's not a big raise, so it'll subscribe very, very quickly. But that's a really good deal. But the point is, we did worst case scenarios. What happens if the interest rate's 8%? And can we still be okay? And yes, we could. And so most people aren't doing that. Most people aren't stress testing these deals strongly enough. And I think that we're going to see some upset. We're going to snap up some deals where they didn't do it right, and I hate to say it, but that's likely going to happen. People are still overpaying and they're not paying attention to that risk. And so I think that's the biggest risk right now. That's the first thing I thought of when you prepared me for that question earlier, Darren, because I really, that jumped right into my head. So,
well, I think it's definitely timely and well put, and we'll know more when we get there.
Yeah.
But
I wish I had a crystal ball to see where we are a year from now, buddy. It's like every day it's something new. It's like, what the heck's going on out there?
Well, but I think that, like we've been talking, mindset, if you have your mindset right and you have your focus and your goal, and you're prepared to take action, I think you have the opportunity, likely you're going to be in a better spot than if you didn't. And so I appreciate you taking the time to talk.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Hey, Rod, before we wrap up, where can the listeners go if they'd like to learn more or connect with you?
Sure. So my boot camp again it's Multifamily Boot Camp. I say rodindenver.com is better. Rodindenver.com is my boot camp, or just text my name, Rod, to 72345. Listen, it's $197 for 3 days without a big sales pitch. It's just training. You really, and if you're trying to learn this business, once the recession's hit, it's too late. You need to, this is probably the most important event that you can do right now to really learn this business. Not an event where I've got multiple speakers coming in that talk about different things, because you don't learn the business that way. You get some insights, but this is soup to nuts, the business. And so if you can make it, for God's sakes, you'll be glad. In fact, if you come and you don't love it, I don't mean like it, I mean freaking love it, I'll give you your money back. So no questions asked. So that's important. But if you go to rodslinks.com, that's got all my stuff. It's got my podcast. You can quickly get that. It's got lots of free books that you can download. All my social media links, everything's there. And that's probably the best place, buddy. Thanks.
Awesome. Rod, again, I cannot say thanks enough for taking the time to talk today. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, learned a lot, and look forward to doing it again soon.
Thanks, buddy. Good to see you again.
All right. For our listeners, if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CRE PN Radio.